What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. So we finally have some good news. We got a major inflation announcement. Want to address what's going on there because, again, inflation impacts every single one of us. Now, I just want to come out and say that what we have seen over the past couple of months is something that we are hoping is going to continue. We hope inflation continues to go down every single month. The issue, though, and again, this is the big question mark, is oil, okay? Is energy prices. If we see the Biden administration lay off of trying to push prices down, then we're going to see additional inflation, okay? That's what we are expecting. Now, here's the good news. Headline inflation came in at 7.7%. That is for this month. Remember, it was at 8.2% last month. The expectation was it was going to come in at 7.9%. We beat that. That's really good news. Month over month, we came in at 0.4%. The expectation was we were going to be at 0.6%. So that's good news there. And here's the big one, core inflation. Core inflation is everything except food and energy. This came in at 0.3% month over month, which is actually really good. When we strip out food and energy prices, because again, if they keep going up, it causes an issue, right? It causes additional inflation. Because what does every single household use? We use food and we use energy. We use electricity, we use oil, we heating oil, right? Natural gas. It causes us to spend more money. So this is actually very good news. Now, here's where the bad news comes in, but this bad news is also actually good news. What we know is that the one index that is keeping inflation high is shelter. Now you're probably thinking, well, how is that good news? I have to live somewhere, right? Yeah. Shelter last month contributed more than half of all monthly item increases. Shelter is weighted very heavily in the CPI report. Shelter comes in, and I think the weight is like a third of the entire CPI report. So when shelter keeps going up, right? When your rent keeps going up, that's a problem. The good news here, though, is that the Federal Reserve has options. They can come in, they can continue to raise rates even more, which if they do this, eventually it's going to put downward pressure on home prices. And as home prices fall, that will put downward pressure on rents, because as home prices got more and more expensive, guess what? Rents started to go up a little bit as well because people couldn't afford a home. They didn't have a down payment. They couldn't qualify for a specific rate, right? So their only option was to rent, which pushes prices up because demand goes up as supply stays the same. Now, the only problem here, though, is this could actually take some time because prices don't just fall in a single day. They slowly come down. Now, in my market, I'm seeing prices and price reductions come in every single day. But they're not coming in fast enough or large enough to really see that increase or that decrease. As of right now, home prices or shelter is still rising by 9.6% annualized, but the expectation is that is going to cool down, especially over the winter months. So we may see inflation continue to come down slowly, but come February, March, we may see a big drop in inflation. So that's some good news there. One thing that I did get a question about just the other day was new vehicles. That new vehicles seem like they continue to go up in price. Well, that's exactly what we saw today. One thing that I noticed is that today, new vehicles are still rising. I think it's by 0.4% month over month. Now, obviously, this is somewhat concerning, but why do new vehicles continue to go up when used vehicles are dropping in price? Well, I did some research on this. I did some research just the other day. Actually talked to somebody that was a head of one of the heads of manufacturing for a large car company. Now, I'm not going to say which car company, obviously, for security reasons for that person. But he told me that his company, they're not manufacturing as many cars anymore because this new strategy is working extremely well. Now, what is the strategy? Well, car companies are perfectly fine producing less vehicles, because if you produce less and demand is still fairly high, guess what? Supply is down. So guess what happens? Prices go up. The car is seen as more valuable. That is a perfectly good strategy for a car company. You make the same amount of money, you produce less vehicles, right? Which means you need less people, right? Which is less risk. And at the same time, again, you're still producing your product for the end consumer. So he simply said they are fine producing less vehicles because they're still making the same amount of money. They just charge more. But guess what? That means you and I, whoever goes and buys a new vehicle, is going to pay more for it. So that's kind of the problem there. Now, what does all this mean with just 52 days left before the end of the year, before January 1st, 2023? Well, here's what I can tell you. We have one more CPI report that comes out on December 13th. That is going to be big. That's going to be very big. Now, why is this going to be so big? Well, simple. If we see a continuation of what we've seen the past 2 months, we went from, 8.5% down to 8.2%. That was good. Then today we went from 8.2% down to 7.7%. That was really good. Maybe next month we see another 0.5% decline, right? And we go down all the way to, let's say, 7.2%. That would be pretty big. We get in the low sevens or possibly even into the sixes. That would be huge. So that's the first thing that we're going to get. We also have a jobs report that will come out. That will be very telling. But we have the FOMC meeting, the Federal Open Market Committee. They're going to be meeting on December 13th and 14th, which is going to be key because their meeting is going to happen, right, the day that the CPI report comes out. So they're going to see exactly what we're seeing, and then they can go and react to it just the next day. That will be big. Now, chances are we are going to see possibly a 50 or 75 basis point rate hike from the Federal Reserve. That's going to help try to push inflation down, right? We have to reduce inflation. That's the one thing we got to do. The next thing, okay? The Federal Reserve is probably not going to take their foot off the gas yet. They're going to continue to push for rate hikes probably into 2023 just because they would rather push further and faster and then take their foot off later than to not push hard enough and we see inflation ramp back up. All right? Now, here's what we're being told as of this morning. There are a few things that we need to watch for. One of the things that we need to watch for when it comes to inflation, and again, we can't impact our decisions, right now, right? The decisions have already been made, but what will happen with the Senate and the House? As of right now, the House of Representatives is likely going to be controlled by Republicans. Okay, the Senate is going to be really up in the air because we still have a Georgia Senate runoff that will happen on December 6th. That's going to be very big because if we see the House and the Senate controlled by Republicans, this is going to put more pressure, more political pressure on President Biden to talk and negotiate with Republicans to try to get some of their bills passed. Again, it will be a major concern for Democrats and President Biden, but that is something that we need to watch out for. If Democrats were to come back and win the House and the Senate, right, it's not going to be a huge majority, but if they do, they still have control over the House and Senate, and the presidency can try to pass any of their bills, which the worry is, what if we see another one of those Inflation Reduction Acts that actually puts more pressure on inflation? So that's one of the worries. Many experts are worried about our supply chain. How is this going to look moving forward? Are we going to see much of an impact with this ongoing war in Ukraine? Will this impact the U.S.? Some say it's not going to do a whole lot for the U.S. simply because it's been going on for almost a year anyway. And some are saying that it will actually get better, even though it is kind of just extending. So not good news there, but at least it's going to get better eventually. We also know the issue with the Mississippi River drought. Some are saying that if this gets worse, then the issues with food are going to rise. Well, here's what I can tell you. As of right now, we are expecting the water levels to rise fairly soon. Now, it may not be an excessive amount of water added to the Mississippi River, but it would be enough that the shipping crisis, the drought is not going to get worse, which means we ship less product, or it costs even more money. So that's good news there. And the big one, will there be a railroad strike starting on December 6th? As of right now, the third largest union for the railroads is going back to the drawing board to renegotiate. They extended their time frame. They will not strike on November 19th, which is good because they'd be the first one to strike. They pushed that back all the way to December 6th, which gives them more time to negotiate and hopefully fix whatever issues they need to be fixed. As of right now, their union does not want to accept the deal. There are still some out there that are reconsidering the tentative agreement, but if we see a railroad strike, this would actually put a lot of pressure on our supply chain and prices would go up drastically and immediately. So that's what we know there. As always, as I know more, I promise I'll come back on and share all latest news and updates, but this is actually good news. This is finally some good news. This inflation report today was big. I think we can build off of this, but at the same time, it could also turn around and prices could get even worse. So that's what we know at this time. As always, as I know more, I promise I'll come back on and share all latest news and updates. Again, just want to thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.